This is Sherry from the blog OurLifeHomeschooling.com, where I share homeschooling encouragement for everyday moms. Once a month on the blog, I like to share the story of an everyday homeschool mom. This month, I am interviewing Kristin, who is a former school teacher, now homeschool mom. Kristin is an educational consultant who is passionate about empowering mamas to educate their children for the good of others and the glory of God. You can find her on Instagram at from_Kristin_homeschool, or you can follow along with her on her blog at fromkristin.com. I have links and the full transcript and story that Kristin has to share on the blog, and I hope you enjoy this interview as Kristin talks about her homeschool experience. Hi, Kristin.
Hi.
Thank you so much for allowing me to interview you and your family. I'm excited to hear your story and for you to share with other people your homeschooling experience.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here.
So I'm going to just go ahead and let you introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself and your family.
Okay, my name's Kristin Stewart, and I am from Canada. I have lived tons of places in Canada. I'm married to, my husband is with the RCMP, which is the federal police force in Canada. So he can be posted anywhere in our country. So we've been all over. Right now we're on a tiny island that takes a 90-minute ferry ride to get to our island. There's not even a bank here. So we have to take a 90-minute ferry ride for most things. And I homeschool my two daughters. Haley's 10 and she's in grade 5. And Sophie is 8 and she is in grade 3. And they've been homeschooled their whole schooling career. So that's something that they've always done. Thankfully, they don't mind. They're really happy about doing that. And I used to be a teacher before I had my kiddos. So I spent 6 years teaching full time. And then Haley was born and I've been home with them ever since. I've done a bit of substitute teaching when they need me in the schools, but nothing full time. And besides that, I just really love doing fun adventures with our family. We like to travel and see new things and be outside. So that's me in a nutshell.
Oh, wow. Interesting. My husband's also in law enforcement here in the US.
Okay.
But with us, we haven't had to travel at all. So yeah, that would definitely make it interesting. How long do you usually stay in one place?
Our longest was 4 years.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So if you do the bigger city centers, then some people end up staying there their whole career. But we have a real heart and love for the really small rural communities. Mm-hmm. So we've been in more like First Nations communities. We've been super far north, like near the 60th parallel. Wow. So we've done a lot of really small places. So when we moved here, my oldest daughter was 8, and this was the 4th place she'd lived in her 8 years. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure your kids get to experience a lot of things and, get to see different parts of the country. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's a learning experience in itself for sure.
Mm-hmm. And when we moved here, we did a 10-day drive across the country because we went from like northwest to like southeast. So it was 10 days of travel, which was, unfortunately, it was during COVID. So there was a lot we couldn't do, but it was, they kind of like, we had a map and they would trace their little way across. And so they've got to learn lots just by their lifestyle, which has been cool.
Yeah. Oh, that's neat. So when did you first start thinking about homeschooling?
Well, I didn't start thinking about homeschooling at all until the summer before my oldest daughter was supposed to start kindergarten. Because I was a teacher, I had great love for the school system. I hadn't really thought anything that I would do anything else. I was just thought that I would eventually go back to teaching. They would go to school. I never thought anything of it. And then the summer before she was supposed to start kindergarten, I was feeling so sad. I didn't want her to be gone. I didn't feel ready for her to not be with us. I loved having her home. I loved having her home to play with her sister. Just thinking like, what is Sophie going to do all day when Haley's gone to school? And I was just feeling no peace about it. I felt so much sadness. And then it kind of just dawned on me like, I don't have to actually send her to school. I
Yeah.
have a choice here. And I mentioned it to my husband, and he was, he wasn't against it, but he wasn't for it necessarily.
Yeah.
And we were fortunate that one of the other police families that we were in the same community with at the time, they had been homeschooling for a number of years. So
Mm.
he spoke with his coworker and heard from him all the benefits, especially for the law enforcement lifestyle, where they work a lot of different hours, nights, and weekends and stuff. They can miss out on so much time with their kids. Whereas if the kids are home all day, they get to see dad more when he's home. So he was willing to give it a try. At the beginning, we kind of took everything 1 year at a time. Like, we'll see, we'll do it for this year and we'll see how it goes. But then as a couple of years went on, now we're kind of just assumed that that's what we're going to do, what we're going to keep doing.
Yeah. Well, I can relate. When we first started, my husband being in law enforcement had a really crazy schedule. And that was
Mm-hmm.
really the main factor for us too, was just his schedule. That if
Mm-hmm.
we were in school, they would hardly have ever seen him
Exactly.
because he worked
Yeah.
a lot of evening shifts. Sometimes he worked midnight shifts, but yeah, they would have hardly ever seen him. And it was just a way for them, for us to get more family time together, which was perfect
Mm-hmm.
at the time.
Yeah,
So,
totally. And it worked so well because, if he's working on the weekend, it's not like they're missing their only days with him. And if he has to go away for training, we can go with him. We were just away at the beginning of November for a week. He had to go away for a week of training. And of course, his hotel room is covered because he has to go. So we tagged along and we brought our school stuff. And while he was at training, we went to some museums and whatnot that were around, but we still got to go with dad. We didn't have to miss out on seeing him for a week. So it works really well for that lifestyle.
yeah, wow. So, before you started homeschooling, you were a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like your teaching experience was an advantage to you when you started homeschooling?
Yes and no. A little bit of both. It was an advantage in the sense that I felt confident, especially when they were young. I know some of my friends who decided eventually to undertake homeschooling, they were a little bit worried if they could teach their children. I didn't have that worry because I knew I could teach them the concepts. I knew that I could teach them the material. I wasn't worried about that. So having that confidence in my own teaching ability, I think, was an advantage. I didn't go through the whole like, oh, are they going to learn? Are they going to be behind? Because I was confident that I could cover what I needed to cover and that I could find a way to teach it to them. And even when my second daughter started and she was learning completely different than my first daughter, that didn't throw me off because I was used to adjusting lessons for a class from a variety of learners. So in that sense, it was an advantage. I felt like I was better able to kind of think on my feet. Okay, they're not getting it. What can I, how can I do this differently? And I had different tools in my toolbox for coming up with a different way to teach something. But the disadvantage was that I had that school classroom type system ingrained in me for so long, and like, okay, you have to cover this and this over the year. And I am that type of personality anyways. I'm a bit type A and I love my checklists and I love keeping everything on track. So in that sense, it was a disadvantage because I had to unlearn that and then learn, home that the kids are going to learn in their own time. And, it doesn't have to look like sitting down for hours a day. So that's been a slower process of unlearning for me, the classroom stuff, and just being more aware of the learning that happens in the day-to-day life. That's not just with the books.
Mhm.
So kind of both advantage and disadvantage.
Yeah, I completely relate. I had taught school before homeschooling, and definitely I had confidence. I would say I had
Mm-hmm.
more confidence just because I had been in the classroom. I knew kind of what was expected. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, whereas I've run into other homeschool moms that don't have any classroom
Yeah.
experience, so they're, oh, are we covering it enough? Or, oh, I feel like I'm never doing enough. And I just always want to say, you're doing plenty.
Hmm.
And yeah, the same thing as far as like you have this whole school mentality, and home just does not work that way. There's interruptions, it doesn't
Hmm.
fit into the same box, and just having to completely unlearn all that and think about it from a totally different way was definitely a big learning curve for me, at least.
Hmm. And one thing that's neat after having been in the classroom, because now thankfully we've gotten some friends around us now that are starting to homeschool as well. And they'll be like, "Are you sure that this is enough time in the day?" And you can, when you've been in a class, you can kind of say like, "Yes, there's so much time spent having snacks, getting books out, getting everybody's coats on, get everyone's coats off, like bathroom breaks, just getting everyone to pay attention. The time that they're actually learning in a classroom is not actually going to be that much different than the couple hours that you're doing at home. So you are doing enough. And when you're concentrated on one or a handful of students, you can cover things so much more quickly than when you're trying to wait for everyone to catch up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The one-on-one, the difference between teaching 20 kids and teaching one child, you can
Hmm.
cover it in so much less time because it's just you and that child. And
Hmm.
it's very efficient in that way because it takes
Hmm.
time.
It's so efficient. And like the difference between my two children and their learning approaches and styles is so vast. My older daughter, I know if she was in a classroom, she would be bored because she would be one of those kids who is finishing quickly because she's going to get it the first time you explain it to her. And so she's going to, okay, I understand, do my work. Now I'm done. Now what can I do? I'm going to talk to everyone around me because I love talking to people. And then my second daughter, she would be, I don't even know what a school experience would have looked like for her because you need to teach her the concept over and over and over and over until she feels confident with it. Because if she doesn't feel confident, she's going to shut down. Like anything that feels hard for her is overwhelms her and she's going to shut down. And so I feel like I worry she would have been left behind and my other daughter would have been so bored and gotten in trouble. So, they're kind of both ends of the spectrum. And I feel like unless you learn in the way that school teaches you, then it's not going to give you your best experience.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you adjust your homeschool to meet the individual needs of your two opposite kids with
Hmm.
opposite personalities and learning styles?
Yeah, that was a learning curve for sure. Because the daughter that came first, she learned, a pretty typical way. She didn't want all the bells and whistles. I could be like, okay, do you want to use these manipulatives for math? No, I just want to get it done. Just tell me what to do and let me do it. Like she didn't want that. She just wanted to get it done. She pretty much taught herself to read. She was a pretty model student for the most part. She doesn't always give her best effort, but for learning wise, it was pretty easy to teach her. So then my second daughter started, and I'm trying to use the same material, the same curriculum choices, not happening, like shutting down everywhere, just tears, quitting, feeling saying often, I'm just stupid, I can't do it. So then, okay, this isn't working. With her, it has to be fun. She has to be moving. So I had to find totally different curriculum and I had to do a totally different approach. It's evening out a little bit more now as she's getting older, but in kindergarten and grade 1 for sure, she could not sit at a desk or a table. That was not working. So I would put the little alphabet cards across the floor and have her like cartwheel between them and then tell me what the letter was or something. And she had a big bouncy exercise ball. She would bounce on that while she answered questions, or she would be swinging from a bar. It just had to be something movement. I would hide her little sight words around the house and she would have to go find them, bring
Yeah.
them back and read them. It was almost like I had to trick her into learning
Yeah.
almost. And I really had to learn patience with her. I had to muster up all the patience I didn't have basically. Because I just had to trust the process that if I just stayed consistent, eventually she would get it. And that took a lot longer with her than it did with my first daughter. But now she's in grade 3, and I'm really seeing that that was true. And that took a lot longer than I thought it was going to, for sure. She's now even starting, we'll find her at night with her little lantern and she's sneakily reading a book, which I'm fine with because she refused to do that for years.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's amazing how different kids can be. And
mhm.
yeah, it is hard. Sometimes I feel like it is harder to teach someone. I have at least one that I can think specifically, one of our kids that just learned so differently than I do. And
Mhm.
just, yeah, trying to adjust the way I learn and the way he learns. And it has gotten older or easier as he's gotten older.
Mhm.
Yeah, but yeah, same thing, like just movement, constantly moving and just trying
Mhm.
to think of ways to meet those needs. And
Yeah.
it
I
is a
think
big,
as they get older, they trust themselves a bit more too, maybe. It was
yeah,
such a lack of confidence at the beginning for her.
right.
And now she's also seen, okay, I can learn.
Yeah, yes.
So, but a lot of it was just finding the right curriculum for her, which is a huge benefit of homeschool. In a classroom, you don't have that. Like, everyone's going to learn from the same textbooks.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, all about reading for her was amazing. Because there's so much cutting and gluing and stuff I don't love doing, but lots of making it fun. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So you have a unique experience of having taught in a classroom and then having homeschooling, or homeschooling your kids. What advice would you have for someone that would like to homeschool, but just maybe they're on the fence or they're not sure about doing it? What would you have to say to that parent that is really considering it, but just not sure, maybe not confident?
mhm. I would tell them to do it. I said, if you feel like you want to homeschool, then you should. You 100% should. In my opinion, as long as you have a desire to learn, you can homeschool. Because what people that aren't homeschooling don't understand is the homeschooling curriculums are written for a parent who isn't a teacher, or the ones that I've used are. They clearly lay out, say this, ask your child this, say this. They're so easy to follow that you don't have to know how to teach something. You just have to know how to follow the instructions in the book, really. And you have a unique advantage of knowing your child and loving your child and wanting the best for your child. So you're going to have more time and ability to find what works for your child than a teacher does in a classroom of 20 or 30 kids.
Right. Yeah.
So,
And you learn as you go. I mean, you're kind
yeah.
of learning together. And I remembered I feel like everything was harder with my oldest because
Mm-hmm.
we would get to a math concept. I remember when I forget what grade it was, and he got to this one math section, and I was looking at it, and my eyes were bugging out, and I'm thinking, I don't remember this. How do we do this? But we sat and just, a little bit every day and figured it out. And then by the time our second son came to it, it wasn't intimidating to me anymore because we had already sat and worked through it and learned together. So you are learning along with them. And some of the things that maybe we had learned in grade school, we forget, but they come back and you learn alongside them.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things I always tell people when they ask me about this is I say, like, fun fact, your kid's teacher doesn't remember what they learned in elementary school either. Like, guaranteed in their first year of teaching, they were opening up the math book and being like, oh no, I don't remember this. I need to learn this tonight so I can teach it tomorrow.
Right, right.
I know that because that was me doing that.
Yeah, so true. So true. So we're getting short on time here. Can you share just a couple of your favorite resources? And I also have these linked on the blog if people want to go there and actually be able to view them and click on the links and find them.
Okay, well, I already mentioned All About Reading, which I think is just an amazing, amazing reading program for any kid who needs a little extra time, who wants it to be fun, who wants to do some hands-on type thing. I know my older daughter wouldn't have liked it because she doesn't like that stuff, but for my younger daughter, it's been amazing. It has made school so much better for her. It has given her the ability to read, given her the confidence. I really can't say enough good stuff about reading. And we also like the mystery of history. I don't know if you've ever tried that one.
I have not, but I've run into a ton of people that love it. I haven't, I just found something early on. We use Veritas Press History
Mm-hmm.
that we just have always stuck with. I think if I had looked around more, I probably would have really loved that, but we had already started with something else. And, but yeah, I've run into a ton of people that just love Mystery of History.
Mm-hmm. So it basically starts at creation and then covers Bible and world history. So it kind of shows like what's happening in the world at the same time as the things that are happening in the Bible. So it's chronological all the way up to the present day of when they were writing it. So it's in I think four books. So and each lesson then they give an activity for younger, middle, and older students, so you can do it with multiple grades, and the kids could even do it again. Like I'll probably have my kids do it again when they're in high school, because even now they're only going to pick up, they can only pick up some of it, but for me, I'm happy with them to even pick up some, and just to see like these stories from the Bible are not just made up stories, like they're true. Here's how they intertwined into history, and how it all came together. So we read that together as a family, and I'm learning so much from it, which is really neat.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I love homeschooling is I feel like I have learned so much. I mean, it's the biggest learning experience for me, just going back, and I get so fascinated with their history stories, things that I just maybe didn't appreciate when I was younger. Now I'm just more interested in.
Yeah, I definitely wasn't as interested in history when I was in school, but now I love seeing how it all came about, and there's just so much cool stuff to learn.
Yeah, definitely.
And then we are a huge family of readers. I love to read. My oldest daughter loves to read. And then my youngest daughter loves to be read too. And she is starting to learn to read, to enjoy reading for herself. So I enjoy the the Read Aloud family book. She also has a website that you can look at. So she does a ton of book recommendations, which I've used a lot of different chapter book recommendations from her.
Oh, I use her too.
Yeah, she's so good. I've got a lot of good books from her. And then this isn't really a school resource, but I loved September McCarthy's book, Why Motherhood Matters. I just found it really just validating different choices that I've made and whatnot, on how being intentional with your motherhood is not ever something that you're going to regret or feel is wasted. That, this job that we have of being moms is the most important job. And was really encouraging.
I'm not familiar with. So I definitely want to add that to my list. I saw that when you put that on there, and yeah, that sounds really good. It looks like a great book.
Yeah, she's the homeschool. Like, do you know of her at all?
No, I don't. I have not.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with her.
So she even runs a little shop, September and Co., where she sells different homeschool resources and character building resources. She homeschooled, I think, 10 kids, and most of them are grown and homeschooling their own kids now. She has her last couple are still homeschooling. And yeah, I've found her a really encouraging person to follow and read her books. And I have some of her stuff from her shop. So.
Okay, well, I am definitely going to look her up and put her on my list. Maybe that'll be a Christmas gift.
Yeah.
Well, we're running short on time here. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I know it's going to encourage a lot of moms. I feel like everybody has a different perspective, a different story to tell, and I think this is going to be encouraging to a lot of people who need to hear it. So thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening in to this interview. I hope that it's given you some inspiration and some encouragement to either step out and start homeschooling, or to keep going and knowing that you're going to see great results from this lifestyle. Thanks for listening in. Have a great day.